Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we could discuss topics such as discipline and punishment and those kind of things. One of the most challenging aspects of being responsible for children is not just keeping them out of harm's way, but also managing the chaos. Let's face it, child rearing is probably the most challenging job there is. Every gesture, every word of the significant adults in a child's life affects the child and contributes to who he or she becomes later in life. Add to this the complication of different personality types. Unlike the study of the body, the study of the mind is very complex, primarily due to the fact that different people respond differently to the same stimuli. From this perspective, the poor teachers and parents who are making genuine efforts also seem doomed to mess up the child. Now add in the callous and careless adults who take on roles such as teachers or nannies, and you have a potent mix for a messed up child. The most controversial aspect of managing or disciplining children is corporal punishment. The problem with this is that while it may be just the nudge that some children need, for others who have delicate sensibilities, it could end up breaking their spirit. There is also a widespread practice of shaming the more sensitive children by telling them to toughen up and deal with it. The reality is that no one is equipped to tailor solutions according to the needs of different personalities. We simply do not have enough knowledge to figure this out. All the psychology research done so far is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding the mind, especially that of a child who is growing and learning things and then molding themselves into who they will become. And so we have adults blundering around, doing what they think is best for getting through a day around children. So today I am sharing how the scoldings and punishments of adults around me affected me and my behavior well into adulthood, maybe even now. To begin with, I was already a cooperative kid who was eager to obey and please significant adults. So for me, to be hit was crushing. It is easy for other types of personalities to be dismissive about the trauma that sensitive people feel, to say, get over it. Everyone must have seen that couple Dave video where he's like, oh, really, you guys have stress, you guys have pressure, come on, get over it, look at me, we've seen that video. But the basic makeup of a sensitive person is different from others. We bring value to the world in a different way. We see things in a way that others cannot. Sensitive people have a place in the world with contribution in creative fields such as music and art. They enrich the world with their unique take on things and nourish the soul like the tough are incapable of doing. But if you crush our spirit, we wither. We go to a dark place and can no longer use our gifts to bring joy to the world. So that's my take. Now I'll talk about some of the beatings or punishments that I cannot forget and that have affected me. The first one happened in Dapchari. So in Dapchari, what happens is, like I had described the layout, we had a courtyard. So we had our house on one side and the cowshed on the other side and the yard in between. So running water was available on the side of the courtyard, not within the house. So we had to go that side to access water. Now, this yard between the house and cowshed was kacha, meaning there was just mud between the house and cowshed. We would, every week or fortnight, mix cow dung with some water and straw bits and spread it across the yard with a kharata jhadu, which was a twig broom. This was a common practice in rural areas. It kept the place neat and clean. Once dry, the cow dung layer prevented the mud and dust from messing up the area. We would use a broom over this on a daily basis to keep it clean, and then you kind of repeated this every week, every 15 days. Mom was very strict about cleanliness. Like I've mentioned before, she not only kept the place spotless, the cows were super clean too. So you can only imagine how strict she was about personal hygiene. One night, we got into bed at bedtime. I was sleepy and felt lazy about stepping out of the warm house, crossing the courtyard, and washing my feet near the cowshed. I felt that my feet would anyway get dirty as I walked back. So when mom was checking our feet, she saw that my feet were dirty. This enraged her, and she grabbed me by the wrist and flung me across the room. I was a skinny kid and went flying across the room, hitting my forehead on a jutting wall corner. The wound started bleeding profusely, and I had to be taken to a doctor. It took several weeks to heal, and till date, I have a prominent scar on my forehead that people ask about. The second incident also was in Dapchari, and this is about a maid that had come, an Adivasi maid and her daughter. So one day, mom was looking for a helper, and when this Adivasi woman passed by looking for work, mom called her in. The negotiation was done, and mom went elsewhere to continue her work. Now, I was sitting idly in the veranda where the maid and her daughter stood. I was just being a silly kid when I told the woman, "Tum jao," meaning you go. Now, at this point, the woman had several choices on her course of action. She chose nastiness. She called out to my mom, stating that she was leaving because I had asked her to leave. Now, I was a 5-year-old kid. Like, seriously? This made mom furious, and she grabbed me and started thrashing the life out of me, flinging me about mercilessly. I wailed that I was joking and that I did not mean it, but the thrashing did not stop for some time. The woman stood and watched. I was terrified and traumatized. This was not what I had intended. I was just trying to converse with the woman and her kid. In the evening, mom asked the woman to come in again the next day. When I saw the woman and her daughter the next morning, I was so scared that I said, "Tum aao," meaning come in. To this, the woman again called out to my mom and said she was leaving because I had asked her to leave. Her daughter corrected her, saying, "No, she asked you to come." But the woman ignored her daughter. My mom walked up to me furious, and while I cowered in fear, saying, "Sorry, I just asked her to come in," I got a similar thrashing to the previous day. The woman stood and watched. So these two incidents from Dapchari have stayed with me, and like that thrashing, the memory has stayed with me. Now this is the parent. So teachers also do this kind of thing. So the third incident I want to talk about concerns our music teacher, Makani sir. So this incident is burned into my mind. So Makani sir was a slothful teacher, a lazy guy who did not really seem to love teaching or music. We were being introduced to the Devanagari script in the third and fourth standard. We were just learning the alphabet. So that was to prepare us for the Hindi and Marathi classes that would start in fifth standard. Now, the music sir, Makani sir, found ways to not bother with actual teaching or engaging with students. The fact is, as children, our favorite classes were music, art, craft, dance, and the library period. It was unfortunate if the teacher teaching any of these beautiful and soul enriching subjects did not care. We would excitedly wait all week for such classes. They were the highlight of our day. However, Makani sir did not share this sentiment. One day, we formed a queue and walked up to the music room for our class. Makani sir lay snoring on his platform stage, whatever was the low stage he sat on. The room was locked from inside. We knocked and called out to him. Makani sir did not wake up. That week we missed music class, the one music class of the week, due to that. When we were in fourth standard, Makani found a new shortcut to not bother with students. He had gotten someone to write several Sanskrit bhajans and hymns on chart paper and had pinned them to the soft boards all around the music room. There were over a dozen bhajans, each with several stanzas. Makani sir asked us to copy down those bhajans into our notebooks within a week, else we would be caned. He would hit us with a cane. Terrified, we started copying down the bhajans. But we were just about learning to write the alphabet in Devanagari script. So we were finding it difficult to be speedy. First of all, we did not understand those words and we had just learned how to form those alphabets. We were just beginning to practice writing the alphabet. So to write several words, the meaning of which we did not understand, was quite difficult. They were Sanskrit words. So, desperate to avoid being caned, we would run to the music room during every break to try and complete the work. But we were not able to be as fast as was required. Terrified, we went to our class teacher, Uma teacher, who was shocked to hear about our predicament. She promised to help us. So Uma teacher went to Jyotsna Ben, our school principal, with the situation. But Jyotsna Ben ended up scolding Uma teacher, saying that this was the same for all classes. So why was she coming and complaining about the music teacher? I don't know what exactly Jyotsna Ben said to Uma teacher, but Uma teacher came back angry and scolded us. So now there was no way out. Nobody was on our side. I tried my hardest to complete the work. But the day of the checking, of course, it was not complete. I was one of the slowest kids in the class, be it sport or writing or reading. So on that day, Makani sir made us all stand in a row. He had his cane in his hand, a thin, flexible one. He made us lift our skirts and caned us on the backs of our thighs and calves. We had red welts on our legs for several days. He caned us several times that day. I smarted with the injustice of this. Mom couldn't believe this was allowed. But then we knew Jyotsna Ben was a rude and inconsiderate person. There was nothing to be done. Once I was no longer in primary school, I refused to acknowledge Makani whenever I happened to come across paths with him or come across him. Injustice had been done and nothing could be done to right it. Besides physical beatings, another way that significant adults let us down was by refusing to intervene and resolve conflicts. So what happens when adults refuse to help children with conflict resolution is that the child does not learn how to resolve conflicts. They do not gain or develop those skills. So for instance, if some boys had been rowdy and behaved badly towards me during the break time, I would run to tell the teacher when she came in after the break. She came into the classroom. The teacher would be surrounded by about a dozen kids, and everyone trying to give their point of view or tell her what happened or complain about someone. So the poor teacher, she would just raise her hands and say no complaints, and then we just had to go and sit at our desks and start the class. So the conflict would remain unresolved, and we did not learn the skills required to resolve the conflict. So this was again jarring for me as a kid, because if I could not go to a teacher with my complaint for resolution, whom would I go to? So at home, the parents were probably not good at conflict resolution. They could not impart those skills. At school, teachers were not teaching us how to resolve conflicts. So it just remained like that. These were early lessons in the natural injustice of life. These taught me that conflicts would not be resolved, that you just had to roll with the punches, and that no one would help. I was learning to be submissive, the beginning of my learned helplessness. I'll tell you some more about this in part 2. I don't want this one to be too long. So, until next time, take care and be healthy, stay healthy, and I will catch you soon with part 2 of teachers, discipline, and children. So, bye for now.